Well, yesterday we were talking about the idea of solving inequalities. And we had a lot of similarities between solving an equation and solving an inequality. In the first place, the goal is the same. We're trying to figure out what the variable stands for. And the way we do that is the same way as what we did with an equation. Whatever is being done to the variable, we do the exact opposite. A little more of that teenage rebellion, people. You love that stuff, I know. So we're going to use those two ideas and one other little tidbit that we came up with on our own. If you remember, on our kangaroo paper, we made a hypothesis which said that if we were to multiply or divide both sides of any inequality by a negative number, in order for it to stay true, we have to turn the inequality around. And I told you to tuck that away in the back of your head for later. And, well, now is the time we're going to use this. So this idea of multiplying or dividing both sides of an inequality by a negative number and having to turn the inequality around, that's going to be something we're going to use today. And if you remember, I said all the problems on your paper that have a little asterisk next to them, those are the ones that are a little special. They have something different about them. So we're going to take a look at those right now. So keep this in mind. If you don't have this jotted down on your paper, I would go ahead and do that right now. If you need to pause, feel free to do so. And let's roll on to, let's go to number 5 in your packet. Okay, so I can see that my inequality is that 12 is less than k divided by negative 9. So I want to figure out what k is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split it down the middle. You don't have to split it down the middle. I just like to be able to see the two sides of my inequality very nice and neat and tidy. And I'm going to say, oh, well, what are they doing to my variable? And in this case, in the inequality, they are dividing by negative 9. So I, being the good, rebellious teenager that I am going to multiply both sides by negative 9. And when I do that, over here on this side, if I divide by negative 9 and then multiply by negative 9, those are inverse operations or opposites of each other. So I end up with just k. Over on the left-hand side, I multiply out 12 times negative 9. Use your calculator if you feel the need. And 12 times negative 9 is negative 108. All right, and then the next step, we've got our solution almost. The last part is we have to put in an inequality symbol right here. So in every other situation, we've just brought that down. So if I bring that down, let's double check ourselves and see if that is really the way it works out. So let's plug in, let's take a number, knowing this right here. This says k has to be greater than negative 108. So let's choose a number that is greater than negative 108. And I'm going to make this really easy on myself, and I'm going to choose the number 9. So I'm going to say k is 9 because 9 is bigger than negative 108. So I'm going to check it, and I'm going to plug in 9 for k. So I'm going to put a 9 right here, divided by negative 9. When I divide this, 9 divided by negative 9 is negative 1. And I have 12 is less than negative 1. And I look at that and I say, huh? That's not right, because a positive 12 cannot be less than a negative 1. So that to me says that whatever I just chose for my answer, that's not an answer because it doesn't make it true. So I have to go back here and look again and say, where did I go wrong? What have I missed? And I did miss something. If you remember, the whole idea that we talked about, that big hypothesis, that big idea was whenever we multiply both sides of an inequality or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we have to flip the inequality sign around. And we didn't do that. We kept it the same. So this can't be true. So let's try it the other direction. That was a negative 108. I'm going to flip this around and put a k right here. Okay, so I flipped this around. So now my new solution is k is less than negative 108. So we already know that this didn't work. So let's try a number that is less than 108. How about, I don't know, let's try negative 180. Why not? Negative 180. That's less than negative 108. So I'm going to put that in place of k, divide it by 9, oops, negative 9, and that is supposed to be greater than 12. So let's figure it out. Let's take negative 180 and divide it by 9, oh, negative 9, excuse me, and I get a positive 20. And I hope that you did too, because that would be the correct answer. Now, I didn't have to choose negative 180. I could have chosen anything I wanted. That's just a number. I just knew that negative 9 would go into that nice and neat and tidy, so I didn't want to have to do too much calculating here. But you could have picked anything as long as it was less than negative 108. I got a positive 20, and then when you look at this statement right here, you should say, is 12 less than 20? Is that a true statement? And in this case, it is. So that tells us that negative 180 is a solution. And if we were to try, whoops, got a little extra line in there. Crazy you. If we were to try a whole bunch of other numbers that are less than negative 108, we should always get a true statement. So I can say with confidence that my answer is any number less than 108. So now we can't list them all. So what we do is graph them to show. So I'm going to put my negative 108 somewhere in the middle. Negative 107, negative 106, so on. Put in a few numbers on either side. Okay. And now I want to graph all the solutions. So I want to say, here are all the answers. And I have a picture to prove it. So first, I have to say, well, what number do I go to? I'm going to go to 108. What kind of circle should I put on there? Do I do an open or circle or a closed circle? And hopefully you just said to yourself, well, Mrs. Rigler, it's an open circle. And the reason why is... And then I'm hoping you said the answer is because negative 108 is not one of the solutions, but everything less than that number is. So negative 108 will not make it true, but everything smaller than that will. So we don't fill it in. Everything smaller than negative 108 is which direction? To the right, or to the left, to the left. And then you should also be saying it is to the left, to the left. And if we keep on going to the left and we extended this number line, eventually we'll run right over top of our checkpoint, which was negative 180, which we also already proved to be correct. So there you have it. All right, so hopefully you got the gist. Everything is exactly the same except when you get to your final answer, when you have to decide which direction does my inequality go. So what I want you to do right now is try number 6 on your own, and then pause the video right now, finish it up, check it, graph it, and then come back and see how you did. See you in a minute. Bye-bye. Don't go too far. Okay, well, let's see how you did. First of all, hopefully you divided both sides by negative 12, and you got 3.5, positive 3.5 for your number. However, we divided both sides by a negative, so that means we have to flip that inequality around to make it true. So your solution set should be j is less than or equal to 3.5. And I chose, when I checked, I chose 2, because 2 is less than 3.5. So I plugged in 2 for j. Negative 12 times 2 is negative 24, which is greater than or equal to negative 42. So that checked out. So I felt confident to go ahead and graph it. This time I put a closed circle at 3.5 because 3.5 is one of my solutions because j is less than or it's equal to 3.5. So I filled in my circle and then I shaded to the left Everything to the left of that is smaller than 3.5, and those are all my solutions. And one note on my number line, I spaced mine out a little bit, and every other line I made 1. So I just didn't write in the numbers, but each of these has a value of 0.5. So I had 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, and 3.5, and so on, just so you can see. Okay, let's go on to the very last one, and that is number 8. And I'll let you do that one. Although I'm going to give you a clue, a little hint on this one before you get started. And you hopefully will remember this from past conversations, but if you look, this looks like a fraction. And it happens to be a negative fraction because we have a negative sign out in front. So you really have 3 choices. That negative sign can be right in front of the fraction bar. It also could be in front of your numerator and look like this. Or the last choice is it could be in front of the denominator and look like this. All 3 of these are equivalent. They mean the same thing because this says the opposite of this fraction, which means it's a negative fraction. This means you have a negative number divided by a positive. Well, negative divided by a positive is negative. And then down here I have some number divided by a negative. Well, that would be negative also. So when you do that, my suggestion would be go ahead and take your negative sign and move down to the denominator and just put it with the 4. And use this one as your starting point. So go ahead and do that one on your own. Check back in just a minute and see how you did. Alright, so after I move my negative down to the bottom, I'm going to multiply both sides by -4, and I get that W is, and I have to turn my inequality around right now because I just multiplied both sides by negative, and that is greater than or equal to -6. So when I go over here to my check, I decided to make W equal to -4. So this is my W because the -4 is greater than or equal to -6, so that one's okay. I plugged in -4 for W divided by -4, and I get +1. And then I compare that to 1.5, and it is true that 1 is less than or equal to 1.5, so I know I am correct. So when I graph my inequality down below, I put a closed circle on -6, and then I'm going to shade everything larger than -6, so that's everything to the right because that's where all the numbers are that are greater than -6. And there you have it, guys and gals. You are solving inequality machines. And you're welcome. I will see you later. Peace out. Bye.